On this edition of Southern Newsweek, the New Zealand Fire Service is offering advice on kitchen fires. Big brothers and sisters give a helping hand in Rangiora. And Dunedin's library is alive with the sound of music. Kia ora, I'm Melissa Barton. Fire and emergency services are making the public aware of the risks involved with unattended cooking, following a spate of kitchen fires in the Dunedin region. While never leaving a stove without turning all the elements off is the basic rule, there's also other factors to be aware of.
Cleaning out the crumbs from the toaster, just one of the ways to prevent potential kitchen fires. Fire Risk Management Officer Scott Lanews says the kitchen presents major fire risks in the home. He says if a kitchen fire is still small, such as a burning pot on a stove, you can try and extinguish it yourself without having to call the fire service.
As long as the fire is not an excessive size, you can attempt to extinguish the fire yourself. Predominantly the different methods you can use are the likes of an oven tray. You can place the oven tray on top of the pot. You can use a wet tea towel that you can then put over the top and smother the fire.
Once an unattended stovetop fire gets going, the range hood, particularly one that hasn't been regularly cleaned of captured grease, can spread the flames into the roof space. And
the flames being sucked into the range hood. A lot of older houses still have unducted fans into their roof space, in which case you have flames directly heating your ceiling space. A lot of the coils and the air channels in these filters are very thin aluminium and they can burn through, which means that it can start getting into the wall linings and into the ceiling cavities as well.
The Fire and Emergency website has a number of tools available, such as an escape planner to make homes more safe. And fire crews are also available to help out installing smoke alarms in people's homes.
The Home Fire Safety Visit program that's available for participants in Dunedin City to take advantage of. That includes our crews attending to install smoke alarms, doing general fire safety checks, and any other questions that you may have to ensure that you remain safe in a fire.
And if the fire has become well involved, it's a good idea to get out and stay out.
We don't want to see people re-entering buildings if they've already left the building. It's just a recipe for disaster. We would much rather know that you're safe and be able to advise our crews on what's happening than have to mount a search to find you in the building.
He also says it's important not to leave cooking food unattended. Even if you have to go to the door, turn the stove off. In Dunedin, for the South Today.
The importance of mentors was emphasised at the annual Big Brothers Big Sisters fundraising breakfast at Rangiora. Reflecting on the organisation's role in mentoring young people, guest speaker Penny Henare spoke about being mentored as a boy in Northland.
630, 40, 50.
Auctioning off 2 signed Crusaders jerseys at this year's Big Brothers Big Sisters fundraising breakfast in Rangiora this morning. The annual event saw over 200 diners entertained by the likes of guest speaker and youth minister Penny Henare. He spoke of being a rebellious 12-year-old who was mentored by his teacher Calvin Davis, who incidentally is now Labour Party deputy leader.
I had a man come into my life and said to me, "Penny, walk with me. It's okay for you to make mistakes. I'm not going to whip out the belt and strap you. I'm actually going to work with you and talk you through the challenges that you're facing as a young 12-year-old in your pubescent years."
At 16, Henare became a father and was facing to have to leave school until a geography teacher came to the rescue.
She said to me, "I tell you what, Penny, I'm going to bend the rules, in fact break them. Bring your child to school when you can't find a babysitter. Bring your child to school when there is no other support there for you. I will watch your child and allow you to be the great student I know you are."
The Big Brothers Big Sisters organisation helps young people by building strong and positive mentoring relationships. In Rangiora, for the South Today.
Thanks, mate. Thank you, Richard. Well done again. Not sure what we raised here.
Dunedin is on the verge of a crisis as house prices skyrocket to nearly 6 times the average salary, hitting those at the lower end of the economy the hardest. A mayoral housing task force has laid out what needs to be done to stop Dunedin's housing situation becoming a full-blown crisis.
Out of the reach of many home buyers, Dunedin's houses have jumped in price to be nearly 6 times the average wage. Councillor Aaron Hawkins chaired the task force looking at Dunedin's housing problems. He's reluctant to say the city has a housing crisis, but admits the problem needs to be addressed quickly.
I think it is urgent, particularly if you're looking at things like increasing residential capacity, which is what you need to do to try and provide more affordable rental housing in particular. These things can take years from the planning stage through to delivery. So, as the old saying goes, the best time to start would have been yesterday, but the second best time to start is today.
One of the task force's recommendations is extra staff to help streamline the new housing developments.
There's stuff that council can directly change, so having someone on staff whose job it is to make residential development easy through the resource and building consent process, looking at using public land for residential development.
With more than 400 on the city's social housing waiting list, but only 55 places funded for the next 4 years, the task force says Wellington needs to be lobbied for more housing now.
Some things can take longer than others when you're trying to get the central government and their agencies on board from a policy point of view.
The DCC has today voted to accept the recommendations of the Housing Task Force. In Dunedin, for the South Today.
Wide-eyed children from Ashburton Intermediate School have been given a tutorial on the finer points of aerodynamics. And while all the talk of flight in planes was enough to pique their interest, it was the rocket launch that really got their attention.
Demonstrations on centrifugal force, the dynamics of flight and jet engines are just some of the topics up for discussion during Ashburton Intermediate School's recent visit to the Ashburton Aviation Museum at the local airfield.
They're out here learning things to do with aircraft. So we have a table that's to do with flight, we have a table that's to do with different sorts of energy, we have one to do with mapping, we have an electrical one, all sorts of things that kids will be interested in to do with flying.
Every year groups from the school get to call on the expertise of the experienced hands at the museum who are more than willing to impart their knowledge on the keen students.
We do it every year and we get all our members come along and help, and it's just great. It's a great way to do it.
And each year the museum staff launch rockets with the help of an air compressor, discarded plastic drink bottles, water and air.
All hands-on experiments. We try and teach them the things they need to know about how aeroplanes fly, and we believe as a part from the museum that it's a great way to give something back to the community.
The museum volunteers say the children showed a genuine interest in the museum and its exhibits. In Ashburton, the South Today.
After the break on this edition of Southern News Week, Dunedin's public library is filled with the sound of music. And we take a ride on one of the world's greatest rail journeys, so see you after the break. Welcome back. The Dunedin Public Library was filled to capacity with music and people recently at the 4th annual Nook and Cranny Music Festival. Organisers say it was one of the biggest so far, and there's more to come during New Zealand Music Month in the Central Library and beyond.
Music in every nook and cranny. The Dragonfly Rustlers, just one of the performers getting some elevator action during Nook and Cranny in the Dunedin Public Library yesterday. Speaking during this morning's clean-up, an understandably tired organiser Brendan Christie says it was a huge day.
Yeah, last year was big, really big, so it's just kind of continued to grow in terms of, I guess, people knowing about it and coming along to see the different music that we're putting on.
Yesterday, Christie gave a passionate speech before last band on Before the Snooze played an encore.
Blows my mind, so you guys are awesome, so just a round of applause for you guys, thank you.
He says while the day ran smoothly, there's always opportunities to learn.
Just figure out what works and what doesn't. We'll probably won't be quite so ambitious in trying to film everything next year. We might try and reduce it a little bit just to make and go for quality over quantity. and then focus on the ones that are new to the festival.
Dunedin Public Library Events Coordinator Kay Mercer says from their perspective, this year's Nook and Cranny was much bigger than last year.
I was very, very happy with how it went. It was very successful. The audience absolutely raved about it. We seem to have a lot more people, I'd say, this year, personally, the bits I saw. Great finale at the end, there were heaps of people there enjoying it and really showing their appreciation. So yeah, it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
Mercer says musicians are still approaching her about playing at the library during New Zealand Music Month. The next big event at the venue is on Wednesday, when a group of Dunedin songwriters perform, including James Dignan, Jackson Kane and Paul Allen, whose message in this lyric is pretty simple. Mercer says events like Nook and Cranny are in many ways the essence of what a modern library is all about. She's keen on running the event next year, but the question may have been a little too soon for Brenton Christie.
Oh, definitely. I think we can run this. My only concern would be that yesterday we were pretty much at capacity in terms of an audience for quite a lot of the spaces. So I think we would have to consider how we enlarge that.
Yeah, well, not yet, but we'll get there. Yeah, 1 year at a time, Daryl.
There are music events across the city's library network, including this Friday evening's Going Local 2019 at the Central Library, which is an informal session with music industry leaders as they share their wisdom. In Dunedin, the South Today.
This year marks 90 years since the completion of a railway link between Adelaide and Alice Springs. In more recent times, the railway line has been extended to Darwin, creating a premier tourist train ride across Australia. ODT Central Otago reporter Pam Jones took the chance to explore the outback from the luxury of Australia's Gen train.
Celebrating 90 years of a railway link spanning over 1,000 kilometres from southern Australia to Darwin. The Gen train caters for tourists who want to see the real outback of Australia. Construction on the line began in Adelaide in 1878 and got as far as Alice Springs in 1929. Then in 2004, extensions to the line finally reached the northern coast.
It's a bit like a cruise on land, so it's an all-inclusive holiday. It's a fantastic way to see Australian outback.
My journey started up the top in Darwin and the nearby national park of Kakadu.
It's very unique, it's very tropical, but it's a very sort of arid landscape as well. Once you get outside of Darwin, you've got Kakadu with lots of Aboriginal heritage.
The Gen experience is a hotel on wheels, where the dinner menu offers treats such as crocodile sausage, goat's cheese souffle, Australian saltwater barramundi and Kangaroo Island lamb. Alice Springs, in the heart of the Australian outback, is a major stop. The locals help put on dinner and musical entertainment in the open air or under a tent on the rare occasions it rains.
And at the end of the Gen expedition, you're going to end up here in Adelaide. It's a beautiful city with a great mix of old and new architecture, lots of arts and culture, fantastic food. Make sure you check out all of the cuisine on offer at the Grand Central Market. Take a walk along the riverside, check out the bars, restaurants and shopping. Fantastic. This is Pam Jones at the end of a great trip through Australia.
Frankton's new slip road has been officially opened. The $6.4 million project, which started last September, joins an existing underpass at the Shotover Bridge with a single-lane connection to the Frankton-bound lane of State Highway 6.
We declare the Quail Rise Tuckers Beach slipway open.
Queenstown Mayor Jim Bolt officially opening Frankton's new slip road. As traffic volume on State Highway 6 continues to grow, the slip road should provide safer access for right-turning Quail Rise and Tucker Beach commuters than the Tucker Beach Road intersection. For Quail Rise resident Greg Thompson, the event is the culmination of over 5 years' work.
Well, it's really great to see it in the last 6 months, to see it all coming together, to see the how such a simple idea, how complicated it turned out to be, but it's really great that it's open now, and I'm just can't wait to drive my own car up and have a go.
Construction on the $6.4 million project began last September, but Thompson says the idea for the slip road occurred to him way back in 2014.
I was in the intersection one day waiting to get out across the highway, State Highway 6, and there was a queue of people in front of me waiting to get across, and I was thinking there must be a better way to do this.
He figured the solution lay in an underpass.
And then suddenly the light bulb moment of, hey, there's an underpass already going under the bridge where all the trucks go, and all we need is a slip lane. So then I started writing letters to NZTA and put some publicity in the mountain scene.
And while it took years to finally happen, he's thankful he was listened to in the first place. The last section of the highway set to be sealed in about a fortnight, making for a much safer commute for local residents. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Still to come on this edition of Southern News Week. An Ashburton Car Club hosts an event where many drivers got really sideways. And a Dunedin eatery raises like a phoenix from the ashes of a fire, which closed it last year. So stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. The Ashburton Car Club held its Motorkana recently on the grounds of Silver Ferns Farm in Fearton. Part of Wheels Week Plus, the annual event, was held for the first time at the new venue, with many drivers holding nothing back.
Taking the car for a spin. Ashburton Car Club Vice President Daniel Chu says their recent Motorkana was a screaming success, with some competitors choosing to take the course mostly sideways.
This involves all makes and models of cars, from your daily driver to drift cars to full race cars.
The event was won by Neil Gardner in his LVVTA car. Drivers completed 8 laps of the twisty circuit, and Gardner's combined time of 108.46 seconds was the quickest at the end of the day. Chu says the club runs the event for its members and is a way of promoting legal and safe motor racing.
We do this as roughly about a minute course. It's a set course where you can go straight or as sideways as you want. This way it gets people off the street and people get to have a lot of fun.
Second place went to Craig Dunshay in a Mitsubishi GTO at a time of 111.2 seconds, and third was Malcolm Lovett in his Mitsubishi Mirage, clocking up 113.6 seconds. The competition is open to drivers of all ages, with the youngest entrant too young to legally hold a conventional driver's licence.
Test your driving skills. Just an awesome location, which is thanks to Silver Ferns. We have ages from 12 up to old people, which are probably in the car beside me, which we won't see.
36 competitors entered, with 12-year-old Timaru local Will Kitching finishing in 21st place. Drivers didn't have to be club members, but vehicles needed to be roadworthy and to a warrantable standard. Along with the Motorkana, the Ashburton Car Club is also set to hold a static display on the East Green on Friday and a street sprint in the Ashburton Industrial Estate on May the 11th and 12th. In Ashburton, the South Today.
Christchurch schools are preparing for Polyfest, and the intensity of the rehearsals is ramping up as the event draws near. CTV checked in to see how preparations are coming along.
It just fills me up to see that these girls are still embracing our culture, still carrying on traditions.
Nahiraka is a senior Pacifica student. She's also a deputy Māori student as well, so she's Fijian and Māori.
This year we're incorporating Fijian, Tongan, Samoan. Yeah, we're just incorporating all of our cultures and showing them to everyone.
Because I am now living in New Zealand, I am no longer in Samoa, but this is the only way for me to express my culture, and it's the only way for me to be with my culture, connect with people, and it's also the only chance for me to learn other new cultures aside from English and Samoa.
Personally, I love the sasa. I think most people do. Yeah. It looks really tricky, so when you can do it well, it just looks so cool.
Your guys' performance straight up from top to bottom, and it's just what's cool about it is that there's no repeated moves. Every single move has its own place.
For me, it's quite a big thing. For me, being I'm a half Samoan, so I don't only get to represent half of my culture, and
sometimes it's a bit difficult putting my culture out. So this is all definitely big for me. One of the only times I get to represent. So and definitely learning. You know, I'm still learning everything about my culture, and Polyfest really helped me through that. Especially from a young age, growing up, I came in Polyfest really not knowing anything about my culture. The boys, we've got quite a young group this year, so it's been a bit difficult teaching them. A lot of first year Polyfest boys, but we've come together all good. We've come together good, and the leaders have really stepped up. Our youth reading group isn't as big as other years, so it's been a bit difficult with that. But we're definitely ready for the competition, and it should be good on the day.
Going back to our heritage, knowing our culture and getting to learn more about it.
And so we can show our grandparents, show our papas and nanas what we've been learning.
And a lot of the ideas actually in the performance are from the kids themselves. And we just try and flesh that out as best way as we can. And if we see something that we like that they're doing, we're like, hey, add that in there. Why don't you guys add that in there? That's you guys, that's not us. We all grew up in Aranui. We all grew up together doing Polyfest at a young age, from primary school through to intermediate and high school. And we actually came up together tutoring as well. Other schools, not just the school, but we've been doing the school now together for about 3 years now.
We've been friends, us three have been friends since pretty much primary school, as they say. I do singing, Junior does singing, us all actually acts. So we're just trying to put our skills into these guys in a way that they will understand.
We grew up tutoring ourselves. We didn't have any tutors when we were young.
Whoever's years was next day, pretty much. The seniors of that year would have to tutor the rest of the group.
So I guess it's trying to take the reins off of these boys once these boys are done. So me and one of the other boys, Josh, we try to gain as much knowledge as we can from these boys. Just try and, put together something of our own one day, 1 year.
The finishing touches are being put on a top Dunedin restaurant after a fire forced its closure almost 9 months ago. Number 7 Bao Mac is set to reopen following a blaze which ripped through the popular Māori Hill restaurant in August last year. For owner Katrina Tuvi, the experience has taught her a lot.
Being left with 35 staff and no business would be any restaurateur's worst nightmare. For Katrina Tuvi, it became a reality in August last year when a fire in the ventilation system and roof space of her 10-year-old restaurant Number 7 Bao Mac in Māori Hill caused considerable damage.
It's been pretty challenging, but, completely unexpected fire, of course, so, you're not prepared.
Tuvi admits if she knew then what she knows now, she might not have reopened. The extensive damage meant she found herself in a situation she hadn't faced before in her 25 years in the restaurant business. But the opportunity to open up a pop-up version of Number 7 Bao Mac in the Octagon saved the business.
If we didn't have that, I don't really know what would have happened, but I've managed to keep all my core staff and they've been really supportive, which has meant that I could focus on the rebuild here.
And despite the worry about not being open, Tuvi decided to make the most of the situation.
Having that break has given us time to really think about what's important and to look at how we do things and probably be a bit more playful.
There's now a new layout downstairs and some new features to the restaurant, but fans shouldn't be worried about any major changes to the menu.
We always felt pretty good about what we were doing. So we definitely have kept that fantastic aspect that we love, and I know our customers do.
While slightly nervous about this week's reopening, Tuvi believes it'll all come together in Dunedin, the South today.
A University of Otago research fellow is encouraging a new generation of school pupils to take an interest in bugs and even build hotels for them to live in. Dr. Cynthia Winkworth is working with pupils from 3 Dunedin schools, teaching them how to scientifically research invertebrates.
Sifting through leaf litter and dirt while on the hunt for bugs. Zaria, Lena and Cooper from Green Island School learning about the habitats of creepy crawlies, which in turn provide food for the city's bird life.
Learning at school. Ooh, a fantail. It's right above us.
So the Peripatus Schools project is encouraging children to get out into their urban environment and look for bugs and help create urban sanctuaries for these bugs, just using sticks and dirt and getting them aware of their habitats.
Dr. Cynthia Winkworth has been working with about 200 Dunedin pupils over the past year to develop their understanding of scientific research.
They write down what they've found, what kind of bugs they've found, and then with that data they are using it back in the classroom to do their maths and stats and story writing. So they're seeing the whole spectrum of what science can feed into.
She says the project is helping young people learn about their potential impact on the environment.
We're creating this new generation of children who are aware of their surroundings and that they have an influence on what happens to their environment.
The project is a government-funded initiative with a 10-year goal of encouraging science and technology for all New Zealanders. In Dunedin, for the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern News Week. For the latest news from the Southern region, subscribe to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Have a lovely evening. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.